Our story begins in a place of unimaginable chaos, over 4.5 billion years ago. The Earth was not the blue and green world we know today. It was a searing, molten ball of rock, a planet in the making. This young world spun through a violent and crowded solar system, a cosmic shooting gallery where nothing was safe. Giant asteroids and comets, remnants from the birth of the sun, constantly rained down from the blackness of space. Each impact was a cataclysmic event, adding more heat and material to our growing planet, keeping its surface a bubbling, hellish ocean of lava. There was no air to breathe, no water to drink, just fire and rock. Slowly, over hundreds of millions of years, a profound change began. The relentless bombardment from space started to lessen. With fewer impacts, the Earth finally had a chance to cool. A thin, dark crust of rock began to form on the surface, like the skin on cooling milk. But this was a fragile piece. Below this crust, the planet's immense inner heat still churned, causing volcanoes to erupt with incredible force. These volcanoes spewed vast clouds of gas and steam into the sky, creating the very first atmosphere. It was a toxic blanket, nothing like the air we breathe now, but it was a start. Then came the water. The steam that had billowed from countless volcanoes condensed in the cooling atmosphere and began to fall as rain. It rained for millions of years, a continuous, planet-wide deluge that the young crust had never seen before. This great rain filled the low-lying basins and craters, slowly forming the first shallow oceans. These were not the calm blue seas we know. They were hot, acidic, and full of dissolved minerals from the volcanic rock. Yet, within these primordial waters, the stage was being set for the most remarkable event in our planet's history. The first continents, small volcanic islands, began to poke through the waves. Over immense timescales, these small landmasses drifted and collided, pushed by the powerful forces deep within the Earth. The continents we know today did not exist. Instead, the land was a single giant supercontinent, a vast and barren landscape under a strange reddish sky. The sun was weaker then, and the atmosphere was thick with gases like methane and carbon dioxide. The days were much shorter, as the Earth spun faster on its axis. This was a truly alien world, silent and seemingly empty, but it was not empty for long. A quiet miracle was about to unfold in the depths of its global ocean. Hidden from the harsh ultraviolet radiation of the young sun, deep within the warm, chemical-rich waters of the early oceans, life began. We do not know the exact moment, but somehow, simple chemical compounds came together to form the first living cells. These were incredibly simple organisms, far too small for any eye to see. For billions of years, these tiny microbes were the only inhabitants of our planet. They were masters of survival, floating through the ancient seas, consuming chemicals for energy. They slowly, patiently transformed the world around them, releasing oxygen as a waste product, and in doing so, they began to change the very air itself. This gradual change in the atmosphere was one of the most significant events in Earth's history. The new, oxygen-rich air was toxic to many of the earliest life forms, but it created an opportunity for new, more complex cells to evolve. These new cells could use oxygen to produce much more energy. Life remained in the oceans, which now teemed with this microscopic activity. The seas changed from a murky green to a clearer blue as oxygen levels rose. The planet was preparing for its next great leap, a burst of creativity that would fill the oceans with wonders beyond imagination. The long, quiet reign of the microbes was coming to an end. Then, around 540 million years ago, something incredible happened. In a relatively short period of geological time, life exploded in diversity and complexity. This is known as the Cambrian explosion. Suddenly, the oceans were filled with large, wonderfully strange animals. Creatures with shells, legs, and menacing claws appeared for the first time. Trilobites scuttled across the seafloor, while the fearsome Anomalocaris, a large predator, hunted in the waters above. This was nature's first great experiment with building animal bodies, a wild and creative burst that established the blueprints for almost all animal life that exists today. From this point on, life grew ever more elaborate. Fish evolved jaws and then skeletons made of bone, becoming the dominant vertebrates in the sea. Some of these fish developed lobe-like fins, which they used to push themselves through shallow, swampy waters. In time, these fins would transform into legs. These pioneering creatures, the first amphibians, crawled out of the water and took their first, hesitant breaths of air. For the first time, complex animal life began to conquer the land. The continents, now covered in primitive mosses and giant ferns, were no longer silent. The age of land animals had begun. The land was a new frontier, and life adapted to it with astonishing speed. Reptiles evolved from amphibians, developing tough, scaly skin and eggs that could survive out of water. This freed them from the oceans and allowed them to colonize the vast interiors of the supercontinent Pangaea. From these early reptiles, a remarkable group of animals arose, the dinosaurs. For over 150 million years, they were the undisputed masters of the Earth. From the gigantic, long-necked sauropods that shook the ground with every step, to the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex with its bone-crushing jaws, they dominated every continent. The world they lived in was very different from our own. It was a warmer, greener planet, with forests of giant ferns and conifers. There were no polar ice caps, and sea levels were much higher. While the dinosaurs ruled the land, the skies were patrolled by flying reptiles called pterosaurs, and the oceans were home to enormous marine reptiles like the mosasaur. But even this long and successful reign had to end. Around 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid, more than 6 miles wide, struck the Earth with unimaginable force. The impact created a global catastrophe, plunging the world into darkness and triggering volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. The long cold winter that followed, known as an impact winter, wiped out the dinosaurs and countless other species. The titans who had ruled for so long were gone forever, but their extinction left a void, an opportunity for another group of animals that had been living in their shadows. These were the mammals. For millions of years, they had been small, nocturnal creatures, scurrying through the undergrowth to avoid becoming a dinosaur's meal. Now, with their giant competitors gone, they were free to emerge into the daylight and diversify in ways never before possible. The age of mammals had begun. From small, shrew-like ancestors, mammals evolved to fill the empty niches left by the dinosaurs. They grew larger, adapting to life on the plains, in the forests, in the oceans, and even in the air. Whales returned to the sea, bats took to the sky, and on the plains of Africa, a particularly clever group of mammals, the primates, began to thrive. It was from this lineage that a new kind of animal would eventually appear, one that would not only change the landscape, but would one day look up at the stars and wonder about its own origins. Within the primate family, a new branch evolved. These were the early hominins, our distant ancestors. They stood up and walked on 2 legs, freeing their hands to carry food and make tools. This was a pivotal moment. For millions of years, they lived as hunter-gatherers, slowly honing their skills, creating more sophisticated stone tools, and learning to control fire. Their brains grew larger and more complex. They developed language, art, and culture. These early humans spread out from Africa, populating almost every corner of the globe, adapting to diverse climates from frozen ice sheets to tropical jungles. The sky and continents they saw were now very similar to our own. Around 10,000 years ago, another revolution occurred. Humans learned to cultivate crops and domesticate animals. This was the birth of agriculture. For the first time, people could settle in one place, and villages grew into the first towns and cities. With a stable food supply, civilizations could flourish. Great empires rose and fell in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and beyond. They built incredible monuments, developed writing, and made great advances in mathematics and astronomy. The human story accelerated, with knowledge being passed down and built upon through generations, leading to ever greater achievements and a more complex society. The pace of change continued to quicken. The Industrial Revolution, beginning just a few hundred years ago, transformed human society more profoundly than anything before it. Machines powered by steam and coal allowed for the mass production of goods, and new forms of transport like trains and steamships connected the world like never before. Cities grew at an incredible rate, and the human population expanded dramatically. This era of invention and discovery laid the groundwork for the modern technological world we inhabit today, a world of instant communication, global travel, and immense power to shape our environment. And now, we live in an age of wonders. We have walked on the moon, sent robotic explorers to the far reaches of the solar system, and peered deep into the universe to witness the birth of stars. We have harnessed the power of the atom and unlocked the secrets of our own genetic code. Our journey, from the first simple cells in a primordial sea to a species capable of understanding its own planetary history, is perhaps the most extraordinary story of all. The Earth continues to change, and so do we. Our planet's epic journey is far from over, and we are now a conscious, powerful part of its continuing story.